You paid over $1,000 for the latest iPhone. You were promised revolutionary AI features that would change how you use your phone forever. 6 months later, those features still don't work. Your phone overheats, the battery drains faster than ever, and you're stuck with it for 2 more years. This isn't just about one broken promise. It's about how the company that once revolutionized technology has allegedly betrayed the trust of millions of users worldwide. From a $10 billion car project that went nowhere, to AI features that were demonstrated but never delivered, to declining quality that has customer satisfaction hitting decade lows. Why is the iPhone struggling? And what does this mean for the company that Steve Jobs built? Let's find out. Back in 2007, something magical happened. Steve Jobs walked onto a stage and declared that Apple was going to reinvent the phone. And they did. But let's rewind a bit. Before the iPhone, the smartphone world was dominated by BlackBerry. These devices were the kings of business communication. Government officials carried them. CEOs depended on them. BlackBerry held nearly 50% of the US smartphone market by 2009. The iPhone wanted to capture exactly this segment, premium users who valued quality, privacy, and status. When Jobs launched the iPhone, he positioned it as a phone that was premium, had its own operating system, and could capture the love of its users. Then something interesting happened. iPhone users didn't just like their phones, they fell in love with them.
It was an absolute madhouse. A huge crowd outside. There was a queue of people that had been waiting for days to buy the phone that was wrapped all the way around the corner. And I was waiting there patiently, and at one point the crowd surged forward and I actually got flattened against the glass wall of the store.
And just like love in real life, most of the time you can't explain why. You just do. Maybe it was Steve Jobs' charismatic personality and his story that added magic to the brand. Maybe it was the premium quality smartphone with its own operating system. Nobody knows for certain, but users just fell in love with it. Then BlackBerry made a fatal mistake. They decided to abandon smartphones and focus on data protection services instead. An extremely successful product line just died. Today, there's an estimated 30% of smartphone users who miss BlackBerry phones and would go back if BlackBerry returned. So iPhone grabbed the users that came mostly from BlackBerry, plus some from Nokia and Microsoft phones. Samsung figured this out and launched their Galaxy S series to compete. But most BlackBerry users weren't looking for what Samsung offered. They were looking for brand association and top quality products. Samsung did offer top quality, sometimes even better than iPhones, but there was no Steve Jobs, no charisma, and no premium brand feeling. So iPhone replaced BlackBerry's reputation and captured even more users who wanted to be part of this status world. And a status symbol was born. Celebrities were using it. Your kids were using it. The upper middle class and wealthy were using it. iPhone became the Rolls-Royce of the smartphone industry. Steve Jobs didn't just invent the iPhone, he knew this product and its potential more than anyone ever could. His approach to creating products was unlike anything the tech industry had seen. Jobs had what you might call an authoritarian leadership style. He oversaw every single detail. If something wasn't perfect, he would famously say, "This is garbage," and demand it be redesigned. His team created 67 different versions of the iPhone's home button before Jobs approved one.
The answer is that if you love Touch ID and that home button, you better buy an iPhone now, because I think that in the next 1 to 2 years, that will be a thing of the past.
But this perfectionism came from a deeper philosophy. Jobs believed that design wasn't just about how something looked, it was about how it worked. He wanted products that would create an emotional response from users, forging a deeper connection. The iPhone succeeded because it solved real problems. Before 2007, people carried separate BlackBerries, regular phones, and iPods. Jobs envisioned combining all three into one device that actually worked well. The original iPhone launch on January 9th, 2007 remains one of the most memorable presentations in tech history. Jobs used what's called the Rule of Three. He said Apple was launching 3 revolutionary products: a widescreen iPod with touch controls, a revolutionary mobile phone, and a breakthrough internet communications device. Then he revealed they were all the same device, the iPhone. But here's what made Jobs a genius. He realized that touchscreen technology was fairly new and absolutely mesmerizing to users. While other phone makers were still focused on physical keyboards and tiny screens, Jobs decided to lead the race with this revolutionary interface. The touchscreen wasn't just a feature, it was the feature that would change everything. This was the right move at exactly the right time. Samsung and everyone else quickly followed, scrambling to catch up with touchscreen technology. But Apple had the crucial first mover advantage. What most people don't know is that the iPhone being demonstrated was barely functional. Apple had multiple backup devices ready, and Jobs had to follow a carefully rehearsed script to avoid crashes. But the touchscreen vision was clear, and it worked. Steve Jobs kept the momentum going. He not only invented the iPhone, but understood its potential better than anyone. Consumers wanted to be associated with his charisma, his story, and then they wanted to be part of this premium world that iPhone represented. Then Steve Jobs passed away in October 2011. When such a visionary leader and the inventor of the product dies, the brand is definitely going to take a hit. But what happened next has been unable to keep the momentum. Tim Cook took over as CEO. Cook was a master of operations, supply chains, manufacturing, efficiency. Under his leadership, Apple's revenue grew from $108 billion to $391 billion annually. The stock price increased by over 350%. But Cook's approach was fundamentally different from Jobs. Where Jobs was autocratic and hands-on, Cook was democratic and collaborative. Where Jobs focused on breakthrough products, Cook focused on operational excellence and profit margins. Under Jobs, Apple released revolutionary products about every other year: the iMac, iPod, iPhone, iPad. Under Cook, the company has struggled to produce any market-changing products since the iPad in 2010. Instead, Cook shifted Apple from a product-driven company to a finance-driven one. The company began paying dividends and buying back stock, things Jobs refused to do because he believed stock price should follow great products, not financial engineering. iPhone prices skyrocketed. What cost $650 in 2016 now costs over $1,200. Even the budget iPhone SE increased in price by 40%. But there's something more troubling happening. iPhone still sells well, it's still a status symbol. But the company isn't doing anything special to keep up with the rapidly changing smartphone industry. And then came the AI boom, and Apple's response has been frankly a disaster. In June 2024, Apple held its annual developer conference and made a big announcement. They unveiled something called Apple Intelligence, their answer to ChatGPT and Google's AI. The promises were incredible. A completely revamped Siri that could understand personal context, an AI assistant that could control your apps, answer complex questions, and work across all your devices. Apple called it the start of a new era. When the iPhone 16 launched in September 2024, it was marketed as designed for Apple Intelligence. The AI features were the biggest selling point. Customers were excited. Finally, Apple was going to compete in AI. But here's what actually happened. When the iPhone 16 shipped, most of the AI features were missing. The advanced Siri that was demonstrated, it didn't exist. The personal context understanding, not there. The app control features, nowhere to be found. What customers got were basic features like photo cleanup and simple writing tools, features that other phones had been offering for years. Then came the delays. In March 2025, Apple quietly announced that the advanced Siri features would be postponed. In June 2025, Bloomberg reported that these features might not arrive until spring 2026. That's a 2-year delay from what was originally promised for the iPhone 16 launch. Internal reports revealed that Apple's AI was performing 25% worse than ChatGPT. The features only worked properly 2/3 of the time, which Apple considered unacceptable for release. But the damage was done. Customers felt betrayed. Class action lawsuits were filed. People claimed they bought the iPhone 16 specifically for AI features that still don't exist. Today, when you ask Siri a complex question, it often responds with, "Let me open ChatGPT for that." Essentially, admitting that Apple's own AI can't handle the request. While Apple was struggling with AI, there was another massive failure happening behind the scenes. For 10 years, Apple had been secretly working on something called Project Titan, an Apple car. The idea started during Steve Jobs' time. He had said Apple should dominate all spaces where people spend time: home, work, and transportation. Americans spend hours daily in their cars. It seemed like a natural expansion for Apple's ecosystem. In 2014, Tim Cook decided to seriously pursue the car project. Apple spent approximately $1 billion per year for 10 years. Over 5,000 employees worked on it at its peak. They built multiple prototypes. One looked like a minivan with an all-glass roof and club seating. Another was pod-shaped without front or rear windows. They planned for fully self-driving cars with no steering wheel or pedals. But the project suffered from constant leadership changes and shifting goals. Sometimes they wanted to compete with Tesla as a premium electric vehicle. Other times they wanted to challenge Google's self-driving project. Later, they scaled back to basic driver assistance features. The team went through 4 different leaders. Employees started calling it the Titanic disaster. Hundreds of workers left during multiple restarts and layoffs. The technical challenges proved insurmountable. Fully autonomous driving turned out to be far more complex than Apple anticipated. As one expert put it, one problem modern AI algorithms can't account for is other humans on the road. Apple couldn't find any established automaker willing to manufacture their designs. The automotive supply chain proved vastly more complex than electronics manufacturing, and the profit margins in the car industry were nowhere near what Apple expected. In February 2024, Apple executives announced to internal teams that Project Titan was being cancelled. $10 billion and a decade of work had produced zero market-ready products. Elon Musk responded to the news with a cigarette emoji, essentially celebrating that his biggest potential competitor had given up. Remember that love affair we talked about at the beginning? Is turning into a very different relationship. Cell phone user satisfaction has hit decade lows. iPhone users are reporting more technical problems than ever before. Overheating issues with the iPhone 16, battery drain problems, camera glitches, connectivity issues.
Now to new complaints about the new iPhone 15. Some customers say Apple's newest phone is overheating. ABC's Rebecca Jarvis has more on this.
The new iPhone 15 is heating up sometimes, literally.
Drop it down now, pick it up. Wow.
After Apple released the newest model last month, some heated customers have taken to online forums and social media claiming the iPhone 15 has been overheating for them. Some claiming the phone can, at times, be too hot to hold. And this TikTok user, Hamna Arif, showing her fingers, claiming they were burned from overheating, having her device replaced.
But here's the fascinating part. Despite growing frustration, iPhone users keep buying iPhones. Loyalty rates are still at 89%, even though they've dropped from 94% just 3 years ago. Why? Because leaving the iPhone ecosystem is incredibly difficult. Think about it. Your photos are stored in iCloud. Your music is in Apple Music. Your messages are in iMessage. And if you switch to Android, your text bubbles turn green, which creates social stigma among iPhone users. Your apps would need to be repurchased. Your chargers and accessories would become useless. Your family members might not be able to share photos and videos with you as easily. This is what economists call switching costs. Apple has deliberately designed their ecosystem to make leaving expensive and inconvenient. But the cracks are showing. More iPhone users are switching to Android than Android users are switching to iPhone. Samsung has gained ground. Google's Pixel phones, while still a small player, are attracting users with genuine AI features that actually work. The Chinese market tells an even starker story. iPhone sales declined 17% in China during 2024. Apple fell from first place to third place, behind local brands like Huawei, Vivo and Oppo. Users are starting to ask hard questions. Why pay over $1,000 for features that don't work? Why accept restrictions and limitations when competitors offer more freedom and functionality? While Apple has been struggling, its competitors haven't been sitting still. Google's Pixel phones now offer AI features that actually work. Real-time language translation, computational photography that's genuinely impressive, an assistant that can understand context and perform complex tasks. Samsung continues to dominate the Android market, with premium features often arriving before iPhone gets them. Foldable phones that Apple still doesn't offer. Fast charging that makes iPhone's charging look slow. Customization options that make iOS feel restrictive. Chinese manufacturers like Xiaomi, Oppo and Vivo are offering flagship-level features at significantly lower prices. They're eating into Apple's market share, not just in Asia but globally. Even newer players like Nothing Phone are creating buzz with innovative designs and genuine alternatives to the iPhone's increasingly stale formula. But Apple's biggest threat might not be another smartphone company. It might be the companies leading the AI revolution: Google, Microsoft, and OpenAI. Think about it. If the most valuable features on your phone come from Google's AI or OpenAI, why do you need an iPhone? You could get the same AI features on a cheaper Android phone. Apple's ecosystem advantages start to matter less when the real innovation is happening in the cloud, not in the hardware. And here's another problem coming. The US government has threatened major tariffs on Chinese imports. Since 80% of iPhones are manufactured in China, this could drive iPhone prices up by another 40 to 50%. Imagine paying over $2,000 for an iPhone Pro Max. How many customers would Apple lose at those prices? So where does this leave Apple and the iPhone? The spring of 2026 will be crucial. That's when Apple says the advanced AI features will finally arrive, 2 years later than originally promised. If they work well, Apple might regain some credibility. If they don't, the damage could be irreversible. But Apple faces a much bigger challenge. The smartphone market is maturing. People are keeping their phones longer. There are fewer breakthrough features to justify premium prices. The iPhone still has advantages. The integration between iPhone, Mac, iPad, and Apple Watch remains unmatched. iOS is still more refined than most Android versions. Apple's privacy stance resonates with many users. But these advantages are being eroded. Privacy regulations are forcing all companies to be more careful with user data. Google and Samsung are improving their software quality, and price-conscious consumers are finding excellent alternatives at much lower costs. The question isn't whether iPhone will survive, it will. Apple has too much cash, too many loyal customers, and too strong a brand to disappear. The real question is whether iPhone can remain the dominant force it has been for the past 15 years. Can it justify premium prices when competitors offer similar or better features for less money? Can it maintain user loyalty when AI advances are happening elsewhere? There's still time for Apple to turn things around. They have the resources, the talent, and the ecosystem to compete. But they need to return to the innovation mindset that Steve Jobs championed instead of the profit-maximizing approach that Tim Cook has prioritized. The iPhone story isn't over, but the days of customers blindly upgrading every year, of accepting limitations because there were no alternatives, of paying premium prices for the privilege of being locked into Apple's ecosystem, those days might be ending. The love affair that began in 2007 is being tested like never before. Whether it survives depends on Apple's ability to remember what made users fall in love with the iPhone in the first place, and their willingness to earn that love again instead of taking it for granted. The next few years will determine whether the iPhone remains the king of smartphones or becomes just another premium option in an increasingly competitive market. Only time will tell.